Hey guys, um, kids are playing for a few minutes quietly, so I thought I'd take a second to just kind of talk and share about like how God is working and Alex is in my heart through this process that we're walking with Charlotte. So I really wanted to focus today on talking about our suffering and our history of suffering and how we feel like God has been using those experiences to kind of like prepare us for this in many ways. So for many of you who maybe don't know, Alex and I got married almost 6 years ago. And since the day of our marriage, we've literally been walking through one trial after another. And it's not been small things, it's been really rather big things that we've had to kind of like work through. And one of the most recent big trials that we faced was a car accident that left me pretty significantly disabled. Um, and we are just now we're recovering from that. We were starting to get back to our sense of normalcy. And that's when we got the news about Charlotte and realized that things were very quickly not all okay as maybe we first thought. So I just kind of wanted to really share like how God has been cultivating our hearts to walk through trials and like um, why we have the faith that we have in God and in the comfort that we find in Him and His presence as we walk through these really hard things. So the first thing I wanted to bring up is that it's hard. Just because we have God doesn't mean that we expect that we're going to walk through life without any trials. Um, all through the New Testament, you see themes of how he calls his followers to walk through hard things and how he uses trials to cultivate our hearts after him, to test us, to grow us in our faith and our walk. And I think for Alex and I, like, that's what our prayer was when we first got married. We wanted to experience God intimately and closely, and we wanted God to use us right where we were. And we knew that God is going to have to do some pretty big work in our heart and in our lives in order for him to be able to use us effectively. So that really kind of like started everything that we began walking through, and it changed the way that we saw trials in our life. So, prior to our experiences, I think maybe when we were walking through trials, it was very self absorbed. So, not understanding why God would let us go through something difficult because, He promises to take care of us, and not understanding that He uses those things for good in our lives. So all of these years now, six years of walking through some pretty serious stuff, we've learned and are continuing to learn over and over again that these really terrible things that happen. These really terrible things that happen in our life, God has used to do some of the most amazing work in our lives, in our hearts, and He's used it to be a testimony to other people. He's used it to give us a deeper understanding of who He is and the grace and joy that we can find through Him in the midst of those experiences. So, in many ways, like, we don't enjoy walking through these hard things, but I wouldn't trade any of the experiences that we've had because we've seen God in amazing ways. We have I have experienced supernatural healing that cannot be explained by doctors, not once, but now twice. We have watched God heal hearts and to just move in incredible ways in our lives. And those experiences have shaped our faith and have really had an impact in who we're becoming as children of God and how we live our life. And in that process, we have so much more joy and peace than we did before we started going through all of this. There's a closeness and an intimacy that we've developed, not just with each other, but with the people that have been walking through these things with us. And that I wouldn't trade for anything. When you've experienced God in like the midst of something really tragic, there's a closeness and a realness that you experience. Like all of a sudden, this God that like lives up in the clouds and does these amazing things that we read all of these stories out, suddenly he's real and he's manifested in your life in an incredible way, and in a way that is very hard to explain to other people until like they've experienced maybe something like that. So I can talk about how God is real to me, but until you've really been desperate and dependent on God, that like the reality of what that looks like in your life, it really isn't very, like, it's not as, I'm trying to think of the word I want to use. It doesn't sink in as much. Um, and we're still like every trial that we go through, we're like, wow, like we understand God, and like God's so cool, and He's so like with us and intimate, and He's huge and powerful and awesome. And then we go through something, a little bit more intense, and we're like, wow, like God is so much bigger than we thought even before this, and like His love for us is so amazing, and He provides in amazing ways. Like, how could I have not seen this before? And everything that we go through produces this like deeper sense of intimacy and understanding of God and who He is as a person, and His love and compassion for us, and His grace and mercy. And like that is one of the coolest things about walking through these hard times. And while like there's definitely a part of me right now that's struggling to understand like why Charlotte, I'm my daughter, and trying to cope with this just really heavy thing. Hold on 1 second. And we're back. Evelyn bumped her head, so we're just taking a little break. So anyway, while I'm struggling like with understanding like why God keeps allowing us to go through these really hard things, and that like feeling like He's really giving us a break to just enjoy life, because I've experienced Him intimately and seen like these amazing things that He's produced in us and in our lives because of the ways that we've suffered, I'm not questioning His goodness. So like to me, there's no question as to whether or not He loves me, and whether or not He's going to take care of me, or whether or not He's going to use this to grow and cultivate me. It's more just trying to emotionally deal with the heaviness of the situation and what it means, how our life is changing because of it. And even if it's only changing for a season, it's still something that is totally unpredictable. We have no idea what to expect in the next few months. We have no idea what her life is going to look like beyond this, or if these surgeries that we're going to be trying, if they're even going to be successful. But we know God does. So we're struggling not because we're questioning why God is allowing us to go through these things, because we've seen why He allows us to go through these things, and it's only for our blessing and only for our goodness. But it's more trying to figure out how to cope with the emotions around this, how to cope with watching your daughter in pain, coping watching your daughter regress and lose skills that she had, and not knowing how her life is going to change. I don't think there's any question in our minds whether or not God's going to be walking this with us, but I think that there is an emotional part where we're trying to figure out how to process this change in our life. But I think like the fact that it's another trial, like that's exciting for us. As weird and as strange as that sounds, our trials and the really big things that have happened in our life have been incredible blessings for us. And in the moment, it can be really hard and really heavy and really difficult to work through and painful. But as we walk with the Lord, our lives are changing, and in incredible ways. Like just being able to see who God is, and like that intimate bond with the Father, it changes everything. It changes the way that we interact with people, the way that we live, the way that we are able to cope with situations, and the way that we think about life, and how we raise our children. Like everything is focused and centered on who Christ is and how He manifests in our life. And the more that we go through, and the more that God grows us, the more we experience that wholeness and fullness in Jesus. So I think it's an amazing gift, an amazing blessing to be able to walk through hard things, because it's Christianity in those moments, it becomes real. Like your walk with the Lord is real. And it's then that you really get to make that choice. Are you going to choose to trust God through this? Are you going to allow Him to grow you and cultivate your heart after Him? Are you going to pursue Him? Are you going to let Him be a comfort for you? Are you going to go to His feet and to just bask in His presence and in His glory through this? Are you going to allow others to speak into your life? Or are you just going to come back to yourself? The problem with returning to our own selves is that we can't protect ourselves. We can't fulfill our own needs. We can't sustain ourselves. We need other people in our lives, and we need other other things pouring into us to establish us and to make us feel loved and accepted. And God does that for me. Even when, marriage isn't always a picnic, God is that strength and intimacy that sustains you in the midst of it. So, all that to say that we really see this trial as a gift from God, but at the same time, it definitely hurts and it's definitely a heavy thing to walk through. But we do trust that God is going to walk this with us. We trust that He is with Charlotte and that He has her needs in His mind, and that through this, good things will happen. So I just wanted to share that as an encouragement for you. If you're maybe going through a rough time in your own life right now, that God has good things in store for you. You just need to come to Him, come to His feet. I want to be there. Hi, Charlotte. You want to say hi? Say hi to everyone. Hi. You can be happier. Hi. Hi. We're talking about Jesus. What do you think about Jesus? You don't know yet? That's okay. Okay. Well, we're going to say goodbye, and we hope you guys have a great day. And I will connect with you all over this week. Charlotte's got some cool appointments coming up that will hopefully give us a little bit of some more concrete answers for what's coming up next. So we'll stay in touch. Otherwise, you guys have a great night.